The storm had rolled in fast, swallowing the city in thick, gray clouds. Rain hammered the streets with relentless force, turning gutters into rivers and sidewalks into shallow lakes. The air was heavy and cold, carrying the metallic scent of wet concrete. Somewhere along a dimly lit road on the outskirts of town, an 8-year-old girl stood barefoot at the edge of the asphalt. Her dress, once pink with tiny yellow flowers, clung to her small frame, drenched and heavy. Her curls stuck to her cheeks in wet ropes, and her lips trembled violently as she wrapped her arms around herself for warmth. She had been out there for what felt like hours. "Help me!" Her voice cracked, no louder than a whisper drowned out by the rain. "Help!" She tried again, louder this time, but the cars kept speeding by, their headlights illuminating her for just a split second before disappearing into the dark. Nobody saw her. Or maybe they didn't want to. Her tiny feet stung from standing on the cold, wet pavement. She thought about sitting down, but knew if she did, she might never get up again. She didn't know where to go. She just knew she couldn't go back. Far down the road, sleek headlights cut through the fog and rain. A black Bentley hummed quietly as it glided along the street. Inside, Damien Cole sat behind the wheel, his hands firm on the leather steering wheel. The warmth inside the car contrasted sharply with the storm outside. The air smelled faintly of leather and cedarwood cologne, the kind of expensive scent that matched Damien's tailored suit and polished demeanor. He wasn't in the mood for distractions. Not tonight. His mind was already occupied with the deal he'd just closed. Another acquisition, another zero added to his already astronomical net worth. People called him ruthless. He preferred focused, as his windshield wipers swept the rain aside in steady beats. He noticed a flicker of movement up ahead. A small figure staggered onto the road. "What the hell?" Damien muttered as he slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly, tires squealing against the wet asphalt, before coming to a halt just feet away from the girl. She stood there, frozen like a deer caught in headlights, her tiny arms outstretched as if she could somehow stop the giant machine barreling toward her. For a moment, neither of them moved. The rain poured down harder, drumming against the roof of the car. Damien's heart thumped at his chest, not from fear, but from shock. He threw the gear into park and stepped out, flipping open a large black umbrella. The cold rain splashed onto his polished shoes and dark suit, making him frown. "Hey!" he called out, his deep voice cutting through the storm. "What are you doing out here?" The girl didn't answer. She just stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. Damien crouched down slightly, lowering the umbrella over her trembling body. "Where's your family? Your parents?" Her lips quivered. They left me," she whispered. Damien felt something tighten in his chest. He wasn't good with kids. He wasn't good with emotions, period. But as he looked down at this fragile little figure, soaked to the bone and shivering violently, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Anger. Not at her. At whoever had left her here like this. He exhaled sharply. "All right, get in the car before you freeze to death." The ride was silent, except for the steady hum of the engine and the occasional sniffle from the back seat. Damien glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. She sat huddled, her small hands gripping the seatbelt, her big brown eyes staring blankly ahead. His mansion loomed in the distance, a fortress of glass and stone glowing faintly in the storm. When they arrived, Damien's assistant, Elise, rushed to greet him. Her eyes widened when she saw the soaking wet child trailing behind him. "Mr. Cole, who is this?" "A stray," Damien said curtly. "Get her some towels and warm clothes." Amara. She finally told him her name. Sat curled up on the edge of a massive couch, wrapped in a thick blanket. A steaming mug of cocoa sat in her lap, untouched. Damien stood a few feet away, arms crossed, watching her like she was a puzzle he didn't know how to solve. "Listen, kid," he said finally, "I'll call child services in the morning. They'll figure out what to do with you." Her head snapped up. "No!" she cried, her voice raw with fear. "Please, don't call them. They'll send me back." "Back?" Damien frowned. "Back where?" Her eyes darted to the floor. "My uncle, he hurts me." Damien's jaw tightened. Damien pulled out his phone anyway. He wasn't equipped to take care of a child. That wasn't his job. "Yeah," "This is Damien Cole," he said when the operator answered. "I found a child. She's been abandoned. Can you give us her name, sir?" Damien glanced at her. "What's your name?" "Amara," she whispered. "Amara Johnson," Damien repeated. There was a long pause on the line. "Sir, did you say Amara Johnson?" "Yes." "Why?" The operator's voice dropped. "Don't let her out of your sight. That child's case is complicated." Damien frowned. "Complicated? What do you mean?" But the line went dead. Damien stared at the phone in his hand. Amara looked up at him, her big brown eyes shimmering with tears. "Please," she whispered, "don't send me back." For the first time in years, Damien didn't know what to say. He thought he was saving her, but what he didn't know was that she was about to save him. The rain hadn't stopped. It lashed against the tall glass windows of Damien Cole's mansion, the sound like 1,000 tiny hammers beating on his sanctuary. But inside it was quiet, too quiet. Damien stood in his study, staring down at the city lights that flickered in the distance. The leather chair behind his mahogany desk remained empty. Normally, this was where he spent his nights, reviewing contracts, sending emails, and planning acquisitions that would cement his empire. But tonight, his mind wasn't on business. It was on the little girl curled up on the couch downstairs. Amara. She hadn't spoken much since her outburst earlier. After begging him not to call child services, she had fallen silent, her small body trembling beneath the thick blanket Elise had wrapped around her. Damien had left her there, unsure of what else to do. He didn't have children. He didn't have emotions. And yet, here he was, pacing his study like a man who had lost control of his own life. His phone buzzed. It was Elise. Elise, voice low, hesitant. "Sir," she's still awake. "Just thought you should know." "Thanks," Damien muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "You know, maybe she needs you right now. Not as Damien Cole, the billionaire, but as Damien, the human being." Damien chuckled humorlessly. "I'm not sure I know how to be that guy anymore." But even as he said it, his feet were already carrying him toward the stairs. Amara was sitting cross-legged on the couch when he entered the room. The blanket was pulled tightly around her shoulders like armor. Her small hands clutched a crumpled napkin she had been using to wipe her tears. She didn't look up when he approached. "Still awake?" Damien asked softly. She nodded, her eyes fixed on the flickering flames in the fireplace. "You should try to get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." At that, she flinched. Are you still going to call them?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Damien hesitated. "That was the plan," he admitted. "But I'll think about it." For the first time, she turned to look at him. Her wide brown eyes were red from crying, but there was a flicker of hope in them now. "Please," she whispered, "don't send me back." Damien pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "You said your uncle hurt you. What did you mean?" She looked away, hugging the blanket tighter. He said I'm worthless. He said Mama didn't want me anymore, so now I belong to him." "Where's your mother?" Damien pressed gently. Amara's chin quivered. "They took her away. The police. I don't know why." "And your father?" "Never met him." Damien ran a hand over his face. This wasn't his world. He didn't know how to navigate it, but he couldn't ignore the hollow ache in his chest as he watched her wipe away another tear. Later that night, Damien retreated to his study and made another call to a private investigator he kept on retainer. "Find everything you can on Amara Johnson," he ordered. "Parents, relatives, whatever's in system. And fast." "Complicated case?" the PI asked. "You have no idea." Morning came slowly. Sunlight filtered weakly through the rain clouds as Damien stepped into the kitchen. He stopped short when he saw Amara sitting at the counter, legs swinging above the floor as she nibbled on toast. Elise hovered nearby, giving Damien a pointed look as if to say, "She's your responsibility now." "Morning," Damien said stiffly. "Morning." Amara echoed, her voice shy. For a few moments, they sat in silence. Then Amara spoke. "Why did you stop your car?" The question caught him off guard. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "Guess I couldn't leave you there." Amara smiled faintly for the first time. It was small, but it was there. That night, Damien's phone buzzed. It was the PI. Sir, I've got some information. You were right to be cautious. Her mother's in prison for fraud. As for the uncle, what about him? Damien asked sharply. He's bad news. History of violence, gambling debts, and wait, are you at your house right now? Yes. Why? Because I just pulled up a flag. He knows where she is, and I think he's coming for her. Before Damien could respond, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. Amara screamed. Damien bolted from his study. In the grand foyer, the front door swung open violently. A large man stood silhouetted against the storm, rain dripping from his coat. His eyes were wild, his face twisted in a sneer. "There you are, you little brat," the man growled. Amara backed away, clutching the blanket to her chest. "Uncle Roy," she whispered, her voice shaking. Damien stepped between them, his eyes blazing. "Get the hell out of my house." The man smirked. "She's family, and you're not going to stop me." He thought protecting her would be simple, but now Damien Cole is about to learn just how far some people will go to claim what isn't theirs. The storm hadn't let up. Thunder rolled across the city like an angry drumbeat, and lightning illuminated Damien Cole's mansion in brief flashes of blinding white. But inside, there was a storm of another kind brewing. Damien's heart pounded as he stood in the grand foyer, blocking the path between Amara and the man who claimed to be her uncle. "Get out of my house," Damien said, his voice calm but laced with steel. Roy's eyes narrowed. The man reeked of stale whiskey and wet leather, his coat dripping a muddy puddle onto the marble floor. "You don't know what you're messing with." "Rich boy," Roy spat. "That's my niece. You've got no right to keep her here." "She's terrified of you," Damien shot back. "I'd say that gives me every right." Amara clung to the banister behind Damien, her small fingers gripping the polish with so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Please," she whispered, "don't let him take me." Roy took a step forward, his boots squeaking on the wet floor. Damien didn't move. "Try it," he said coldly, "and I'll have security drag you out and straight into a holding cell." For a moment, Roy hesitated. His eyes darted from Damien's broad shoulders to the discreet security camera blinking above the door. "This isn't over," he growled. "She's mine by blood, and the law's on my side. You'll see." With a final glare, Roy turned and stormed back into the rain, slamming the door behind him so hard the windows rattled. Damien turned to Amara, her small frame trembling like a leaf in the wind. "He's gone," Damien said softly, but she didn't move. "Amara," he tried again, crouching down so he was at her eye level. "You're safe now." Her lip quivered. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around his neck and buried her face in his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice muffled by a suit. Damien froze. Affection wasn't something he was used to, not giving it, and certainly not receiving it. Slowly, awkwardly, he wrapped his arms around her. "You don't ever have to thank me for protecting you," he said. Later that night, Damien called in his head of security. "I want every entrance reinforced. Double the guards. No one gets in unless I personally approve it," Damien ordered. "Yes, sir," the man nodded. "And keep an eye on that man, Roy Johnson. I want to know his every move." When the guard left, Damien sat in his study, staring at the fire crackling in the hearth. He had planned to hand Amara over to child services. That had been the logical, responsible thing to do. But now he couldn't shake the image of her tear-streaked face as she clung to him for dear life. The next morning, Damien found Amara in the kitchen, sitting on a bar stool with a coloring book open in front of her. She was humming softly as she colored a butterfly with bright pink crayons. "Morning," Damien said as he poured himself a cup of coffee. "Morning," Amara replied shyly. She watched him for a moment, then tilted her head. "Do you have kids?" The question made Damien pause. "No," he said finally. "Never really saw myself as the father type." Amara nodded solemnly. "You'd be a good dad," she said softly. "You're nice, and you're not scary like Uncle Roy." Damien's chest tightened. He wasn't sure he deserved that kind of praise. That afternoon, Damien surprised himself by agreeing to sit with Amara as she colored. "You're really bad at this." Amara giggled as she watched him clumsily fill and flour with bright orange. "I'm a businessman, not an artist," Damien said dryly. "Maybe you should practice," she teased, her laughter filling the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in years, Damien smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. The phone rang, breaking the moment. Damien answered. "Mr. Cole," his lawyer said, his voice tight. "We received a notice from Child Services. They're sending a representative to collect Amara tomorrow morning." "What?" Damien barked. "Roy Johnson is filing for custody. And given that you're not a relative, the courts might side with him, unless you can prove he's unfit." Damien's grip tightened on the phone. "She's not going anywhere," he said through gritted teeth. That night, Damien found Amara asleep on the couch, clutching her teddy bear. He knelt beside her, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "I don't know how," he whispered, "but I'm not going to let them take you." Her small hand twitched, as if she heard him even in her dreams. He had built empires and conquered industries. But for the first time in his life, Damien Cole was fighting for something bigger than himself, and he couldn't afford to lose. The morning sun streamed weakly through gray clouds, casting a pale glow over Damien Cole's mansion. But inside, there was no warmth, only tension. Amara sat at the long dining table, picking at her toast. Her curls framed her face like a dark halo, but her eyes, usually wide and curious, were distant and heavy. She knew something was wrong. "Do I have to leave today?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Damien set his coffee cup down harder than he intended, the porcelain clinking sharply against the saucer. "No," he said firmly, "not if I can help it." "But Uncle Roy said..." Damien's jaw clenched. Forget what he said. He's not the one making decisions anymore. "I am..." By mid-morning, a knock echoed through the mansion. Damien opened the door to see a woman in a gray pantsuit, her hair tied in a tight bun, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Cole?" she asked. "Yes." "I'm Cynthia Marks, Child Protective Services. I'm here regarding Amara Johnson." Behind her stood Roy Johnson, a smirk plastered across his face. Well, Roy sneered. "I told you I'd be back." "Cut the theatrics," Damien growled. Cynthia cleared her throat. "Mr. Johnson is filed for immediate custody on the grounds of familial relation, unless you have legal guardianship papers. The law favors placing the child with her next of kin." Amara appeared in the hallway, clutching her teddy bear. When she saw Roy, her small body stiffened. "No," she cried. "I don't want to go with him." Cynthia's expression softened, but she remained professional. "Amara, sweetheart, the courts will decide what's best for you. She's not leaving this house," Damien said coldly. "Not with him." "You don't get to decide that, Cole," Roy snapped. "Maybe not yet, but I will." That night, Damien's lawyer arrived at the mansion with stacks of paperwork. "You've got a tough fight ahead," she warned. "He's family. You're not. And your public image, cold, ruthless billionaire, won't help." "Then fix it," Damien said. "It's not that simple." Damien ran a hand over his face. "Nothing in my life has ever been simple. But I don't care what it takes. I'm keeping her safe." Amara peeked from behind the doorway, watching him. Later, Damien found Amara in her room, staring out the window at the dark sky. "Can I stay here forever?" she asked softly. Damien knelt beside her bed. "I don't know about forever," he admitted, "but I'll fight for as long as it takes." "Why?" she whispered. "Because no one fought for me when I was your age," he said quietly. Amara's eyes widened. "You didn't have a mommy or daddy either?" Damien shook his head. "Not really. Just people who were supposed to care but didn't." Amara reached out her small hand and placed it over his. "Then maybe we can be a family," she said. Damien's throat tightened. "Maybe we can," he whispered back. 2 days later, they were standing in court. Roy sat across the aisle, his smirk replaced by a smug look of confidence. "This rich boy doesn't know how to raise a child," Roy argued. "She's blood. She belongs with me." Damien stood, his tall frame commanding attention. "Your Honor, this man is a danger to Amara. He has a history of violence and is only after her for her inheritance. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, raised a hand. I've heard enough. I'll review the evidence and make a decision. As the gavel came down, Amara squeezed Damien's hand tightly. Don't let him win, she whispered. That evening, Damien's lawyer delivered the news. The judge granted Roy temporary custody until the final hearing. You'll have to hand Amara over tomorrow. No, Damien said, his voice like ice. Damien, you can't defy the court. It'll make things worse. He didn't reply. The next morning, the mansion was in chaos. Amara's bed was empty. Her favorite teddy bear lay on the floor. She's gone, Elise cried. She must have snuck out. Damien's heart dropped. She's scared, he realized. She thinks I can't protect her. Damien combed the streets in his Bentley, scanning every alley and park. Then, in the pouring rain, he saw her. Amara sat on a swing at an empty playground, her clothes soaked, her small body shivering. Amara... Damien called as he ran toward her. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. I didn't want them to take me, she sobbed. I thought if I hid, maybe they wouldn't find me. Damien knelt in front of her, rain drenching his suit. Listen to me, he said, gripping her shoulders gently. I don't care what the courts say. I'm not letting anyone take you away from me. Ever. For the first time in his life, Damien Cole wasn't fighting for power or money. He was fighting for love, and he refused to lose. The storm had passed, but Damien Cole's world was still caught in the eye of a hurricane. For days, he hadn't left Amara's side. After finding her in the rain-soaked playground and bringing her home, he doubled security around the mansion. No one got in or out without his say-so. But deep down, Damien knew the threat wasn't just at his gates. It was in the system itself. Don't let them take me. Amara's soft whimper woke Damien from a shallow sleep. He looked across the room where she lay curled up in the guest bed, her tiny fists clutching the blanket. No, please, she murmured, her face tight with fear. Damien's chest tightened. He walked over and knelt beside her. It's okay, he whispered. You're safe. I promise. Amara stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Will they still come for me? She asked, her voice hoarse. Not if I can help it. The next morning, Damien sat in his study, surrounded by files. His private investigator, Mason, had delivered a thick folder filled with documents, court transcripts, and photographs. This goes deeper than I thought, Mason said grimly. Amara's mother, Lydia Johnson, wasn't just convicted of fraud. She was framed. Framed. Damien's eyes narrowed. She stumbled onto something. Something big. A child trafficking ring laundering money through shell corporations. She tried to expose it and ended up in prison for a crime she didn't commit. Damien's stomach turned. And Roy, he's not just some deadbeat uncle. He's involved. The ring uses family members as pawns to keep the kids quiet or to sell them outright. Damien slammed his fist on the desk, making the coffee mug jump. Those bastards. That afternoon, Roy showed up again, but this time not alone. Two men in dark suits flanked him, their eyes cold and calculating. Mr. Cole, Roy sneered, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Hand the girl over, and you walk away clean. No lawsuits, no bad press. Or what? Damien said, stepping closer. One of the men leaned forward. Or we take her by force. Damien's jaw tightened. Try it. I dare you. The men exchanged a look. Then Roy chuckled darkly. You've got no idea who you're dealing with. Walk away, Cole, or we'll bury you. That night, Damien's mansion was attacked. The security alarms blared as masked men stormed the gates, overwhelming the guards with brute force. Sir, we've got a breach. The head of security shouted over the intercom. Lock the panic room. Damien barked. He scooped Amara into his arms as she screamed. What's happening? Hold on to me, Damien said. Don't let go. He sprinted through the house, dodging debris as the attackers smashed windows and furniture. Finally, they reached the panic room, a hidden chamber reinforced with steel. As the door locked behind them, Damien pressed Amara's tear-streaked face to his chest. "You're safe," he whispered fiercely. "I won't let them hurt you." Inside the panic room, Damien called Mason. "Tell me you got something," Damien demanded. "We do," Mason said. "We've identified the key players in the ring, and they're tied to politicians and law enforcement. This isn't just about Amara anymore. This is about shutting them down for good." "Send me everything," Damien said. "Are you sure? Going after them means making yourself a target. I'm already a target." The next morning, Amara sat on the edge of her bed, her small hands twisting in her lap. "Why do they want me?" she asked quietly. Damien knelt beside her. "Because you're brave," he said softly. "Because you're strong. And because bad people are afraid of what happens if you stay alive." "Will you leave me too?" she whispered. Damien's heart clenched. "Never," he said. "I promise, Amara, I'll never leave you." Later that day, Damien met with his lawyer and Mason. "We can't rely on the courts," Mason said. "They're compromised." "Then we expose them publicly," Damien said. "Leak the evidence. Make it impossible for them to cover this up. You're going to war with powerful people," the lawyer warned. "I don't care. I've fought for companies, for billions. This is the first fight that actually matters." That night, Damien sat on the balcony outside Amara's room, staring at the stars. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about stock markets or acquisitions. He was thinking about a little girl who had somehow cracked open the walls around his heart. But deep down, he knew the fight was only beginning. And this time, losing wasn't an option. He thought he could save her by protecting her. But now Damien Cole is about to learn sometimes the only way to protect someone is to burn the whole system down. The air was thick with tension, like the quiet before a storm. Damien Cole had built empires, crushed competitors, and commanded rooms full of billionaires. But tonight wasn't about money or power. Tonight was about survival. Amara sat at the edge of her bed, clutching her teddy bear. "Damien," she whispered. He knelt beside her, his sharp suit replaced by a dark sweater and jeans. "Yeah, kiddo? Will they hurt you because of me?" Damien's heart clenched. "They'll try," he said honestly, "but they won't win." Amara's lip quivered. "Promise?" "I promise," Damien said, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. In the mansion control room, Mason's voice crackled over the speaker. "Roy took the bait. He thinks you're handing Amara over tonight at the docks." "Good," Damien said coldly. "Let's end this." "This isn't just Roy," Mason warned. "He's bringing muscle, and we've confirmed the trafficking ring's top lieutenants will be there." "All the better," Damien said. "We cut off the head of the snake." Hours later, Damien drove alone through the darkened streets. The Bentley hummed softly as rain began to fall, streaking the windshield like silver veins. His hands were steady on the wheel, but inside his mind churned. He wasn't just fighting for Amara anymore. He was fighting for every child caught in the system. The docks were deserted except for a single warehouse glowing faintly under the pale moonlight. Damien stepped out of the car, his boots crunching on gravel. From the shadows, Roy emerged, flanked by armed men. "You came alone," Roy sneered. "Stupid move." "Did I?" Damien replied calmly. A click echoed in the night as Damien's private security team stepped out from the darkness, weapons trained on Roy's men. Roy's smirk faltered. "Stand down," Damien commanded, but Roy laughed. "You really think you can stop this? You're just one man." Chaos erupted. One of Roy's men lunged at Damien, but Damien ducked, landing a solid punch to the man's ribs. Another attacker swung a pipe, but Damien caught it mid-swing and wrenched it free. "Get him!" Roy shouted. Gunfire cracked in the distance as Damien's team engaged Roy's men. Damien grabbed Roy by the collar, slamming him against a shipping container. "You're done," Damien growled. "Am I?" Roy rasped. "Even if you take me down, there's always another like me. This ring doesn't die." "We'll see about that." Sirens wailed in the distance. "Here they come," Mason said over Damien's earpiece. The press, the feds, everyone saw the live stream. What live stream? Roy demanded, his face pale. Damien held up his phone, showing a live feed of the entire operation broadcast to millions online. Your little empire just burned, Damien said coldly. As the feds swarmed the warehouse, Roy was dragged away in handcuffs, screaming, "You haven't won, Cole. She'll never be safe." Hours later, Damien returned to the mansion. Amara was waiting by the door, her small frame dwarfed by the grand entryway. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I did," Damien said, kneeling to meet her gaze. She flung her arms around his neck. "I was so scared," she murmured. "So was I," Damien admitted softly. "But it's over now." The next morning, Damien sat on the balcony with Amara, watching the sunrise. "Do I still have to go back to the system?" she asked quietly. "No," Damien said. "I filed for emergency guardianship. You're staying here with me." Amara smiled for the first time in days. "Does that mean you're my family now?" Damien's chest tightened. "Yeah, kiddo, I guess it does." He saved her life. But what he didn't realize was she saved his soul. Please subscribe to this channel for more stories.